Paul McKenna has me standing opposite him, eyes closed and hugging myself. Then he tells me to stroke my arms from my shoulders to my elbows and back. Then repeat. And again. It's a process known as havening, designed, he explains, to reduce stress and trauma by mirroring feelings of childhood security and creating delta waves, associated with deep relaxation, in the brain. If it sounds slightly odd, I'm sure it looks odder still, but, to my surprise, as Paul talks to me in his resonant, highly recognizable, voice, asking me to visualize an unhappy time in my life, then replace it with a happy moment, I find myself relaxing. Remarkable as it sounds, as the process continues over about 15 minutes, I feel the bad thoughts, you'll have to trust me, but it's something that has dogged me for years, fading into the background and a sense of weight lifting from my chest, almost as if the anger I've carried is fading away. We're in the comfortable West London home Paul shares with his wife Kate, and their giant Great Dane, Misty, and afterwards, despite my inbuilt cynicism as a journalist, I genuinely feel a fresh sense of purpose, a lightness of step. Which is handy, I tell him, because if it hadn't worked, it might have cast something of a downer on our 2-hour conversation about his new book, Positivity, Confidence, Resilience, Motivation, serialized this week in the Daily Express. I am, it turns out, part of the 2/3 or so majority susceptible to his techniques. There is a proportion of people, something like 30%, who you put in a trance, tell them they'll never smoke again, or eat chocolate again, or whatever, and they come out and they're done, says Paul. Another proportion of people, about 40%, you need to reinforce it. There's a final group of people it's not going to work for. Some people, no matter how hard you try, they want to keep their problem. The 58-year-old entertainer turned therapist and life coach believes it's part of human nature to want to label ourselves and, perhaps more pertinently, to accept the labels of others, especially if they come from the medical profession. When people describe themselves, they will often give you a psychological label, "I'm not artistic," or "I'm not a maths person or a techie person," he continues. But whilst there's no doubt some people have a natural propensity to a particular thing, I'm not convinced by the traditional idea of talent. I think you can learn to do things to a pretty reasonable standard. This learning comes, in his case, from the power of suggestion and, sometimes, formal hypnosis. It isn't some schlocky end of the peer showbiz, although he admits that was the start of his own 30-year journey into therapy and coaching. With Misty beside him on his sofa, he lays out his techniques and theories with boyish enthusiasm and good nature. Perhaps not surprisingly, after all, they have made him rich and famous. But Hess suffered his share of setbacks too, of which more later. Positivity is not the same as positive thinking, when you tell yourself everything is going to be alright, even though deep down you know it isn't, he explains. It's a state of being where you are free of unnecessary stress and fear, you're confident, you have self-belief, optimism, resilience, adaptability and, finally, you feel motivated about your future. And, after 2 years of global pandemic and, now, the Russian invasion of Ukraine, it's more important than ever. Over the last 2 years, people have gotten good at doing two very dysfunctional things, Paul continues. Understandably, they've begun to worry much more. The constant messages are we're under attack from the virus, terrorists, the economy. Quite understandably, we've got into this catastrophization mindset, like a mouse on a wheel. Even motivated go-getters haven't been able to make plans because Terry's no endpoint or goalposts have kept moving. Thankfully, Paul insists he can help. People have been unable to make plans, and having plans is essential for good mental health and for having a purpose. There's a quote by the psychiatrist Viktor Frankl, who survived Auschwitz, and he said, "Purpose is the cornerstone of good mental health." Basically, I spent 2 years doing focus group after focus group. I've sat in my study and talked into the camera, either to 10 people or 10,000, and it's all the same stuff. In the same way that Terry's been a biological pandemic, Terry's been a psychological one too, and this is my attempt at a vaccine. People have had their sleeping hours disrupted, Terry's more insomnia, Terry's anxiety, suicide's gone through the roof. People are drinking more heavily, trying to self-medicate, and depression is everywhere. People like certainty and familiarity. Whenever Terry's a study done into the things people most fear, the unknown is sometimes higher than death. As a result, confidence and self-belief have diminished. So some of my existing techniques are in the book plus a whole load of new stuff I invented. I want people to pick it up and, in an hour or two, think, "I feel better, it's going to be okay, I can see hope." Confidence, Paul insists, is not the same as being pushy, loud or overly assertive. Very confident people often sit quietly and take everything in. I've noticed that certain people don't say so much, but when they do it's got real impact, he says. He points to the likes of Simon Cowell and Andrew Neil as truly confident people. Much as the pandemic accelerated all sorts of aspects of our lives, from Zoom meetings and online deliveries, it has also changed the way people see his work. For years before, I had to reassure people, get them to trust me. Now they just say, "Simon, just do it. Just make me feel better." I hadn't experienced that permission before. So in this book, it's just, "Now do this, and do this, and do this." Paul snaps his fingers in time to his words. Bang, 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 he continues. It's straight to the heart of the matter. Somebody said to me a while ago, "You're just trying to make me feel better, aren't you?" And I said, "Yes." At the beginning of the pandemic, eager to avoid the slippery slope of enforced idleness, wine with lunch and afternoons watching Netflix, Paul threw himself into helping frontline NHS staff deal with PTSD issues via live and recorded sessions. From that, his new book, a short, to-the-point self-help guide, with blank pages for a daily gratitude diary, was born. It's easy to understand, short, sharp and to the point, and can be read in a couple of hours. I thought I needed a template. I'm going to walk the dog. I'm going to learn something I don't people certainly know about. I've got quite good at cooking, actually, a bit too good, he pats his stomach, and I'm going to connect with people. On my morning walk, I'd ask myself what I'm grateful for. It would be big stuff, little stuff, and then things I was looking forward to. I noticed that elevated my mood, and if I was feeling a bit flat, which I was some days, I'd go back through the list and go, "I'm fine." That's where the gratitude journal came from, but Terry's tons of research that shows an attitude of gratitude gives a big reward. The son of a building contractor and former Middlesex University lecturer, Paul was born in Hackney and grew up in North London. Having cut his teeth in local radio, he eventually joined Radio 1 in his 20s. By then, having become fascinated with hypnotism, he had begun to enjoy a parallel, stage career as an entertainer. "I was very happy as a disc jockey, I'd just landed a job at Radio 1, but I'd been working as a stage hypnotist for years and I decided I had to choose," he says. "Nobody resigns from Radio 1 but I did. Then, it's that fortune favors the brave, and life took me in a new direction." Within 18 months he had a hit television show, booked, live tours and a spell in Los Angeles followed. "My living was going out each night and getting people to do stupid stuff, but then I would sit with 10 people in a hotel and jolly them up. My promoter said, 'You're filling 1,000-seat venues, but then you spend your weekend with 10 miserable people.' I was addicted to getting people to feel better." Despite his success, he has endured his own setbacks. At his Catholic school, he was told he would never amount to anything. "Some people might have been crushed by that, but my choice was to go, you know what, he smiles. Later, while practicing methods that have inspired his new book, he realized how much weight had been carrying from his childhood. "Suddenly I thought to myself, the Catholic Church doesn't wake up hating me. Literally, the pictures floated out of my head. I thought, wow, I really don't care anymore. Afterwards, I walked past this shop with framed quotes in the window. One from JFK said, 'Forgive your enemies but never forget their names.' I remember thinking, I don't feel like forgiving them, but I'm not going to give them my energy." I was amazed how much time he'd wasted being angry about childhood experiences. Later, he endured a nasty falling out with former employees and a betrayal by a girlfriend that left him devastated. His own techniques helped him get over that. "I've got the freedom of indifference now, while my mum still goes, that witch." And, following the death of his father Bill a decade ago, his deep grief was followed by a spell of depression. "I was so destroyed by his death," he admits. "We were very close and I really didn't know how massive the grief would be. I wasn't doing sensible stuff. I was drinking too much. I couldn't work out why I was so sad. Then I realized I was thinking about the hospital and the life support machine beeping. I should have been thinking about the spectacular 84 years he had. Every time I had a sad image, I'd send it away and bring in a happy scene, playing football together, watching Dirty Rotten Scoundrels. All in all, it's been an incredible journey from showbiz hypnotist to respected therapist working with the NHS, private patients, and even the armed forces. Over the last 30 years, we've gone through this extraordinary transformative period. All these wacky techniques, tapping, neurolinguistic programming, havening, visualization and hypnosis are mainstream, not voodoo anymore." Before the pandemic, Paul worked with King's College London and the military to investigate the benefits of havening in treating post-traumatic disorder. Originally it was a military study into PTSD, then they widened it so it was war veterans, then it became rape victims, bereavements, all the extremities of emotional distress. And 70% had a proper U-turn on how they were feeling. The results were astonishing. As for his own depression, He says, "It's made me a better therapist, am much more able to connect. People say to me sometimes, it's all very well for you, you live in a mansion house. But it's got nothing to do with that. When you wake up and you literally cannot see the point in anything, it's a dangerous place to be." Today Paul is looking forward to many more decades of helping people. "You look back and ask, what made my life great? For me, it's not money or another car, it's friends, it's being creative, enjoying work and living life on my own terms." One study asked people in care homes what they wished they'd done less of. 80% said they wished they'd worried less. Good advice, from the master himself.